Hello, it's Deborah from the attic. I'm just going to show you a quick video of some extra ideas that I've had for using up the embossing powder mixes that we did in the previous video. I want to start with this one because this is just an ordinary tag which has been tea stained, but can you see that gorgeous shimmer on those things that are stuck on the front of the tab? They are die cuts, and they're die cuts which have been pressed into Versamark stamp ink, and then you sprinkle on your mix of embossing powder, heat set them, and then you can glue them onto a tag. So I wanted to show you that embossing is more than just embossing sentiments and that sort of thing. You can emboss directly onto die cuts and then stick them onto tags, and I just use a little Nouveau glitter drop for the little dot on the top of the J, because it was far too fiddly to try and do the little white dot that should have gone there. Then I moved on to adding extra little filaments to white embossing powder and just covering part of a tag. So what I did was I used a little bit of, I used a post-it note just to stick on here and keep this nice and clean. This part of the tag was pressed into the stamp pad, and then I covered over the bottom of this with a mix of white and then some of the little filaments I used the other day. Let me just get those and show you those. On these two tags I used Nouveau Diamond Harlequin Confetti, which has got a pinky shimmer to it, and Nouveau Mirrorball Stars, which are stars, not surprisingly. And I wanted to try it both at the bottom end of the tag and at the top end of the tag, and then I added some matching ribbons, and I thought they looked a bit girlish, so I added It's a Girl ribbons on the end of that with some silver as well. So that's another way that you could use it to embellish some tags and take them from plain to something quite sweet. The next one that I moved on to were these two here, and I think these are absolutely gorgeous. I've cut them into tags, but you could use them anyway, and they started out as plain white card and I embossed them. So I ran them through my embossing folders and then cut them into tags, and I coloured the base with, I actually used some distress pens in my little puffy spritzer thing, but that's because I was impatient for them to dry and get on with the next section. If you're more patient than me, you can colour them with paints and just leave them dry, whatever you like doing. And I did this one with 4 colours actually. There's a dark and a light blue and a dark and a light green. You probably can't see all of that, but it does give it a little bit of extra dimension. And then I took my Versamark ink pad, and with this flat on my desk I rubbed the Versamark ink pad straight over it and then sprinkled it with silver embossing powder, shook it off and then heat set it. And what I got was, I got coverage, but it was slightly dull. So what I did was repeated what I'd done before with my ink pad over the top, keep it nice and flat, ink pad over the top, so it's just the raised part of this embossing that picks up the ink from the pad, and then do it again with your silver powder, and this time I got a really lovely shiny silvery finish. And I did exactly the same with this tag, which I think is just gorgeous. I mean, that's just beautiful, and it started out like that and now it's that. that's made my day. And with this I did the same. I did a light purple and a dark purple, a light red and a dark red, and then this time I went over it and I added gold, a gold embossing powder sprinkled over to the top. It wasn't an embossing powder mix, it was just a plain straightforward gold, and I was trying to go with what I thought would be standard colours, what most people would have in their stash, because this is all about mixing and making do with what you have rather than going out and buying anything special. And then, acting on a tip off from one of my subscribers, Jenny. Hi Jenny, thank you very much for this suggestion, you were absolutely spot on. So this is, she said if you mix silver and gold you get a pewter effect, and I've die cut a piece that I can use. I sometimes use this as like a hinge effect in pages and books I make. So I did this with the silver and gold mix and it has come out pewter. I think that's absolutely stunning. Started life as a plain little bit of card, cut it out, sprinkle it over. I actually did this 3 times to get a nice depth on it because I didn't want it to look cardboardy and weedy. I wanted it to look fairly substantial, so I'm very pleased with that effect. I think that's a brilliant tip. And I've saved the best for last. Let me clear these things out of the way. You might be able to hear the dog downstairs. He's very excited about this too. Now, the best for last are the beads. Do you remember that we made some paper beads? They started out like this, little paper beads, just from rolled up paper. You can turn them into fabulous, how can I show you this? You can turn them into fabulous beads. Let me see if I can get them a little closer and show you. So they are a mixture of the pewter effect, and then I've added a little bit of red into the mix and a little bit more red, and then finally quite a lot of red. So I wanted to show you the graduation in tone from plain pewter, little bit of red, little more red, loads of red, and I think those beads look phenomenal. And I wanted to quickly show you how I did it. I've got a mix here that I haven't done before, so I don't know how this mix will turn out. I've got a sort of a dark blue and a red and a glittery one, and I'm just going to mix them all in together. The great thing is, if you don't like the colour that you get on your first roll of the bead, you just do it again with a different colour until you get something you like. So I take my Versamark ink pad, and I've got my my homemade bead out of paper on a pokey tool, because the pokey tool helps me roll it on the ink pad. You can see it rolls, and just make sure you've got very good cover, and then roll the bead in your mix. It doesn't roll so well in the mix, but it covers quite evenly if you work at it. And then heat set it. I'm going to do this in real time so that you can see. I'll try and keep it over the white paper in the hope that you can see the colour change as well. And as one side melts, turn the bead so that you get it covered. It's a bit like making kebab meat. It doesn't matter too much if you've got embossing powder on your pokey tool, because I've done that several times now and I can just wipe it off with a damp cloth. It cleans up nicely. I think that's heat set now, and while it's still warm, if you want to add another layer, if you roll it while it's still warm, you don't need to run it through the ink over the ink pad again, because it will pick up the rest of that colour. It looks very dark. I hope you can see it on the camera. I've got this heat gun going, and I've also got a fan going full blast. You might be able to hear that in the background as well. Everything's blowing in here today. It's a very blowy place. I'm going to let that cool down by just positioning it over the end of a box that I have, and once that's cooled, I'll come back and I'll show you how it looks compared to the other ones. So I've got a white background now in the hope that you can see this a little bit better. This one is the final bead that we made. That's we made from the red and the purple and the glittery stuff, and this is the lightest one, made with the pewter effect, and then gradually more red than the most recent one. I made a monster as well. Let me show you the monster. Now maybe that's not a monster. It was an experiment, and what the experiment was I got my glue gun and I just made a swirly shape on a plain white tag, and then I threw some embossing powder at it and sprinkled it off and used my heat gun to set it in place. So it does give it some extra dimension and sort of glitter around where I put my glue gun, and then I filled in the gaps with some watercolour. So I've called it a monster. Maybe it's not a monster, it just needs more work, but I thought I'd put it out there so you can have if you fancy to go at that, you could have a little share and maybe yours would come out very, very beautiful. I don't think mine is beautiful, but it's an experiment, and sometimes the experiments don't always go how you want them to be. I thought it'd be beautiful and filigree, and it's not. So let me just leave you with these ones, because these ones are the ones that I think are very pretty and very worthy of your time. So I hope you found that helpful, and there are more projects coming up. I've got about 4 videos scheduled over the next week. So until we meet again, take care.